U.S. President Donald Trump has intensified his call for NATO countries to adopt what he describes as a decisive strategy to end the war in Ukraine, the complete cessation of Russian oil imports, and the imposition of sweeping tariffs on China for its continued purchase of Russian energy. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. In a letter circulated on Saturday and later amplified through his social media accounts, Trump portrayed NATO's current response as half-hearted and dangerously inconsistent. He argued that only through united economic warfare can the alliance succeed in forcing Moscow to retreat from its invasion of Ukraine. Trump's letter did not emerge in isolation. It comes after months of growing tension within NATO, repeated Russian escalations, and intensifying debates in Washington over how to end a war now entering its fourth calendar year. For Trump, who has long seen economics as the foundation of global power, the solution lies not in more weapon shipments or deeper military involvement, but in leveraging the West's unmatched economic weight. The alliance's commitment to win this war has been far less than 100%, he wrote. The purchase of Russian oil by NATO members is shocking. It greatly weakens your negotiating position and bargaining power over Russia. Trump's criticism cuts to the core of NATO's most persistent vulnerability, its reliance on Russian energy. For decades, Moscow supplied much of Europe's oil and natural gas, creating a dependency that even after the Cold War shaped political decision-making. Germany, Europe's largest economy, built its industrial strength partly on cheap Russian energy. Hungary and Slovakia, landlocked and reliant on Soviet-era pipelines, have consistently argued for exemptions to sanctions. Turkey, though formally a NATO ally, has charted its own course, expanding its imports of Russian crude while simultaneously negotiating defense deals with Moscow. Even after Russia's invasion in February 2022, which triggered unprecedented sanctions, the energy link has not been fully severed. Loopholes, rerouted trade, and shadow shipping networks have kept oil flowing. Russia's revenues from fossil fuels remain substantial, and according to the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air, Turkey ranks as the third largest global buyer of Russian oil, after China and India. This, Trump insists, is the heart of the problem. As long as oil money flows to Moscow, sanctions on banks or oligarchs are little more than symbolic. In his letter, Trump advanced a bold prescription. NATO countries must impose a full embargo on Russian oil and, in addition, levy tariffs of 50% to 100% on Chinese goods tied to Russian energy purchases. China has a strong control, and even grip, over Russia, he argued. Powerful tariffs will break that grip. The strategy reflects Trump's belief that wars can be ended by attacking economic lifelines rather than prolonging military stalemates. By squeezing both Russia's revenue stream and China's willingness to support Moscow, he believes NATO could force Putin to negotiate. Trump has already tested this strategy with other nations. Earlier this year, his administration imposed a 25% tariff on Indian imports over New Delhi's continued purchases of Russian oil. Those tariffs later expanded to 50%. At the same time, he has signaled openness to negotiations with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, showing his preference for using tariffs both as punishment and as leverage for deals. The message is clear. Countries cannot simultaneously enjoy unfettered trade with the United States while funding Russia's war effort. Beijing responded quickly and forcefully to Trump's remarks. Speaking in Slovenia, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi dismissed the tariff proposal as misguided and counterproductive. China does not participate in wars, nor does it plot them, Wang said, adding, war cannot solve problems and sanctions only complicate them. For China, Russian oil is not just a source of cheap energy but a cornerstone of its broader strategy, strengthening ties with Moscow, diversifying imports away from US-influenced markets, and positioning itself as a global power resistant to Western coercion. This defiance highlights the difficulty of Trump's proposal. China, unlike smaller trading partners, has the scale and resilience to resist tariffs. Indeed, some analysts warn that a massive tariff war with Beijing could trigger global economic disruption, raising prices, straining supply chains, and potentially undermining Western unity at a time when cohesion is most needed. Trump's message also comes at a tense moment on the battlefield. In recent weeks, several Russian drones crossed into Polish airspace, setting off alarms about a possible direct clash between Russia and NATO. Poland, supported by NATO aircraft, intercepted and destroyed the drones. While European officials framed the incursion as a grave provocation, Trump downplayed it, suggesting the violation could have been a mistake. Critics argue this reflects a pattern. Despite his tough rhetoric on tariffs and trade, Trump has often hesitated to confront Russia militarily or diplomatically. His recent summit with Putin in Alaska reinforced that perception. Billed as an opportunity for breakthrough negotiations, the meeting ended without concrete results. While Trump portrayed the encounter as constructive, no progress was made toward ending hostilities. Congress, increasingly skeptical of Trump's approach, has since pressed for tougher sanctions. Bipartisan voices argue that without sustained economic punishment, Putin will have no incentive to scale back his invasion. Beyond Trump's proposals, other NATO allies are intensifying their own measures. At an emergency United Nations Security Council session, acting U.S. Ambassador Dorothy Shea warned that Russia's drone attacks on Poland demonstrated immense disrespect for good faith U.S. efforts to bring an end to this conflict. She reiterated that Washington will defend every inch of NATO territory, underscoring the alliance's red lines. The United Kingdom has gone further, announcing a crackdown on Russia's oil trade. 70 vessels believed to be transporting Russian crude have been banned, cutting into Moscow's shipping capacity. Additionally, London sanctioned 30 individuals and firms, including entities in Turkey and China, accused of supplying Russia with components, from electronics to explosives, vital for its war machine. These moves show a determination to not only target Russian industries directly but also cut off the international networks enabling them. Still, Trump insists these efforts are too piecemeal. In his Saturday post, he reiterated that only a NATO-wide ban and crippling tariffs on China can end what he called a deadly, but ridiculous, war. For Trump, anything less risks prolonging the conflict indefinitely. Trump's strategy, while bold, faces significant obstacles. European economies remain vulnerable to energy shocks, as seen in 2022 when gas prices soared after the initial sanctions wave. A complete embargo on Russian oil could trigger inflation, economic slowdown, and political backlash within NATO states. Tariffs on China, meanwhile, risk sparking retaliation and destabilizing global markets. Critics also question whether economic pain alone can force Putin to retreat, noting that past sanctions campaigns, against Iran, North Korea, or even Russia after Crimea in 2014, inflicted damage but did not produce fundamental policy shifts. At the same time, Trump's approach fits his long-standing narrative about NATO. Since his first term, he has accused allies of free riding on U.S. security guarantees while failing to invest adequately in their own defense. His latest intervention reflects that same skepticism. Europe, he argues, has the means to act but lacks the will. By demanding a total embargo and unified tariffs, he is challenging NATO to prove its seriousness. The debate Trump has reignited speaks to broader questions about how wars in the 21st century are fought and ended. Is the key to victory more weapons and troops, or is it economic leverage? Can sanctions and tariffs succeed where diplomacy and military assistance have so far failed? And, most crucially, how much economic pain are Western publics willing to endure to sustain Ukraine's defense? As the conflict drags into another year, these questions loom larger. Ukraine continues to plead for more weapons and funding, while Russia deepens ties with China, Iran, and other partners. Western publics, facing inflation and political fatigue, are beginning to ask how long the war effort can be sustained. Trump's call for a radical economic offensive underscores both the urgency of the situation and the lack of consensus on the way forward. In his letter, Trump portrayed his proposal not just as policy but as necessity. NATO must act decisively. This is the way to end this deadly war, he wrote. Whether allies heed his call or continue down a path of incremental sanctions will shape not only the future of the conflict in Ukraine but also the credibility of NATO.